All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about conversions, particularly how they allow us to measure the same thing in a couple of different ways. And we'll talk about why that comes in handy and can be important. So, one first example we're going to look at is the conversion between hours and minutes. So we know 1 hour is equal to 60 minutes. So then we can say, well, what if we're talking about 3 hours? Then, since to get to 3 hours, we'd multiply 1 by 3. Then we're going to do the same thing to the 60. And 6 times 3 is 18, so that's going to be 180 minutes. So now we know that there are 180 minutes in 3 hours. So let's look at another example. We're measuring distance. It says that 5 kilometers is the same as how many miles? So we're going to set this one up like a proportion. We know there's 1 kilometer for every 0.6 miles. And that's equivalent to whatever this measurement is that we have up here, 5 kilometers and some missing number of miles. So since kilometers was on top on the left-hand side, we'll put it on top on the right-hand side, 5 kilometers. And then over here, we are trying to figure out, we'll say that's X number of miles. Now we know to get from 1 to 5, we would just multiply by 5, so we're going to do the same thing over here. 0.6 times 5. Well, 6 times 5 is 30. Put our decimal point in there, and it becomes 3.0 miles. All right, so let's consider a couple of other examples. In this one, we have a conversion of yards to miles. And we know that 1 mile is equivalent to 1,760 yards. Now that ratio needs to be equal to some number of yards to 1/4 of a mile. Now I know to get from 1 mile to 1/4 of a mile, I would just divide by 4. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. 1,760 divided by x. And remember, if you don't know how to do this kind of division off the top of your head, that's okay. Just make sure that you work it out. 4 goes into 17 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16, which leaves us with 1. Bring down our 6. 4 goes into 16 4 times. 4 times 4 is 16 again. Bring down our zeros. 4 goes into 0 times. And we have 440. So that means x is equivalent to 440 yards. In other words, 1/4 of a mile is equivalent to 440 yards. All right, so let's consider one more example. It says many drinks come in 20-ounce bottles. What is this volume in liters? This is going to come in handy, for instance, if we're traveling to foreign countries. You might see that drinks are measured in different ways than we measure them here in the United States. So a 20-ounce bottle we can convert to liters by saying, well, 1 ounce is equivalent to 0.03 liters, and that is equal to 20 ounces for every X number of liters. So again, from 1 to 20, I would simply multiply by 20, which means I'm going to do the same thing down here. 0.03 times 20. Well, 3 times 2 is going to be 6, and I need to remember to place my decimal point, so I'm going to end up with 0.6 liters. And remember, if you don't remember how to do this off the top of your head, you can just multiply it out. 0.03 times 20. We know our 0 is going to cover the first row. let's put a 0 in as a placeholder. 2 times 3 is that 6. The others are zeros. Add it up. And we need to make sure that we put our 0 in. We've got 2 decimal places, 0 decimal places here, so this becomes 1, 2, and we have 0.6. All right, so that's it for this evening. If you guys will please try the problems on the back side, make sure that you write down any questions that you have and be prepared to ask me tomorrow.